Welcome to Archery Talk 101 podcast, your guide to better archery skills. We'll bring you the latest tips, tricks, and expert advice, but that's not all. We'll also have interviews with top archers and industry professionals and reviews of the latest gear and equipment and much more. Hey, today we're going to talk archery with a fellow outdoorsman, and we're going to have a lot of fun talking about archery. Let's get this so we can go side by side so we can see each other here. My name is Roy Canterbury. I'm going to be your host today on Archery Talk 101, and we have Darrin on the line with us, and we're going to talk archery with him. Cameron, looks like I'm just top of my head, Yeah, getting new computer kind of messes things up, and it takes a while to get it going. I was just able to get it so I could record last night. So we're gonna have a lot of fun. The challenges are over now, I think, so we're all ready to go. Anyway, Darrin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and maybe you could introduce yourself and tell everybody a little something about you.
Yeah, no, I'm Darrin Christenberry. I have been in archery most of my life. I started out as just a hobby and quickly turned into a dream chaser. I wanted to be a professional archer and see my name in lights and cash some big checks. And I checked off a lot of those boxes. And then about 11 years ago, going on 11 years ago, I started working for Elite Archery in the outdoor group in the archery industry. Was a sales rep for about 4 years. And then April of 2017, took over their pro staff. So my official title is pro staff coordinator with the Elite and the outdoor group, but I also do a lot of customer service. I answer tons of questions on the social media pages, still talk to dealers, still take orders once in a while, sit in on sales meetings, talk with the engineers, do some product testing, have a voice at the table. So it's kind of cool to see archery from as many seats on the bus as I get.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's just it's not really like work. I mean, there's days there's days you want to pull your hair out because there's just things you can't control, and I'm sure that's with every job out there. But I get to play with bows and arrows every day of my life, and I couldn't have picked a better career path for myself than archery. So that's basically, in a short few sentences, who I am and what I do.
Well, and if they wanted to get a hold of you, how would be the best way to get a hold of you if they have questions specific about what you guys sell and what you guys do?
Yeah, I try to stay up with the questions on Facebook and Instagram. Obviously, our brands: Elite Archery, Scott, Slick Trick, Custom Bow Equipment, Ultra Arrows, etc. We have a Facebook Messenger page. I see a lot of those questions. So if you do a random question to Elite Archery, good chance I'm the one answering it. But I'm Darrin Christenberry on Instagram and Facebook, and I try to keep up with that a little more. I'm a little more disciplined on Facebook, I would say, because Instagram messaging's teeny tiny in the corner, and I see it once in a while. I'm like, oh gosh, it's been 4 days since I've answered any questions. So I do get a little bit behind sometimes. So if it's something urgent, don't wait by your phone. I may not answer for a couple days.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook a little bit more. I don't use the Instagram hardly at all. I don't get on Instagram. Once in a while it pops up, but Messenger, I'm on Messenger more.
Yep, yep.
Because that's a little bit easier because right up the side when I bring up Facebook, there's just a little button push on it, brings up the Messenger stuff. So that makes it nice there. That's probably one of the easiest ways to get a hold of me is either on Facebook or go out to the Arch Talk 101 Facebook group. We have a lot of archers from all over the world in there at all levels and all experiences. So ask a question. We're more than willing to help you. And we don't run ads in there, so you don't we're about trying to sell you anything. It's just all information, and that's well, that's kind of why I called it Archer Talk 101 because when you're taking classes, what's the first class number called? 101, right? Yeah, that's your first class, and that's kind of what why I called it that, and that's why the Facebook name is the same. And I also own archertalk101.com. So there I put podcasts out there. You can connect into the podcast. It goes to my YouTube channel to play it off the YouTube. And I have the YouTube channel, Learn to Fix It Yourself, which you can also watch the videos out there, as well as, get a hold of me there. You can make comments on them. I do look at the comments on all my videos. I'd have just not archery cut videos. I have lots of them. I almost 700 videos out there. So there's probably something for anybody out there. And if not, if there's something you want to learn, hey, let us know. If they're having a problem with archery or anything, just let us know. It's like, okay, I'm having this problem, and maybe you or I, have somebody have solved that problem, and maybe we can reproduce it and help solve it. And that's what's fun about archery is there's so much to learn, and no matter how good you are, there's always somebody who knows something you don't.
Yeah, I always say there's no rules. Everybody's like, well, what should I do? And I'm like, well, there's really no rules. I mean, there's a right way and a wrong way. And you can look across the shooting line today at the open pro class and see the different ways people are getting perfection done. I mean, leaning back and, some of them are shooting command shooting. Some of them are shooting tension style releases. There's just no rules. I don't think when it comes, there's a textbook way, but there's really no rules. If you learn how to do repetitive things in archery, I say there's no rules.
Yeah, and when I'm teaching, I teach what works best for me, and then we look at what's not working for you and modify.
Yeah. Yeah. Having an open mind in this sport is very critical. But then weed out, like you said, here's what I feel like works, but maybe it's not for you. Maybe you don't find it easy. So yeah, I think being open-minded is very, very helpful. But then again, no rules. You don't have to do it one specific way to see success.
Yeah, and one of the things that you're going through, I'm going to tell you what works best for me, and also when I'm teaching, I tell you why I do it that way. Not just well, do this. Well, why? Well, because I
Yeah.
said so. Is not the appropriate answer. Do this, and you say, well, why? It's because I already said do this because of this. I have a ghost coming in. Just kind of appears, in the background. And sometimes a hand will show up over my shoulder, and yeah, it's kind of interesting when you have a background set up in Zoom. You can't see, the rest of the room, but you see
Right.
background, and I like this background. It's I've got a little microphone in the corner, one of these corners over here. I got a little microphone back there. Have an archer in the background.
Yep.
On this side. It's reverse from what I'm seeing it because I'm seeing it in reverse. I got the archer there, and then the deer over on the other side. I'm having all kinds of trouble.
You got it. You got it.
Yeah, so and I used Canva. That's one of the images that the pro version of Canva has, and I just put it in there, put the text on it, and put the microphone on there, and it's like I thought it was a cool background, and it kind of explains what we're doing in one little view, and you see what's going on, and anything to kind of make it unique. So now, do you hunt or do 3D or target, or what type of archery do you normally do?
Everything. Yeah, I I cut my teeth as basically an IBO shooter. I'm from South Central Indiana, so I grew up in what I would call IBO country. Um, the Triple Crown was like the tournaments that were most well known around me. So shooting in Bedford, Indiana, Erie, Pennsylvania, and Nelsonville, Ohio was kind of like the big deal for us. And I didn't really start shooting any ASA stuff until the late '90s. And then started trying to shoot them all. I shot the NFAA stuff, excuse me, turned pro NFAA in 2000. And then my rookie year in 3D was in 2002. And I've been shooting professionally in all the NFA events, IBO, ASA events for, 20 plus 24, 25 years now. Yeah, it's just, I do it all. I don't think, well, I do think it's hard to be really, really good at all of them, but I think indoors helps your 3D game. 3D game, whether you shoot known or unknown, you can hone your skills there, and the sky's the limit. Again, there's no rules. I prefer the judging. That's how I grew up. That's what 3D archery is to me. I don't think there's anything wrong with known archery. There's a place for all of it. But I hate to ever see the unknown archery go away, because that's a skill set that's learned. That's what separated me in my career over the guys that could outshoot me. I could outjudge them on a lot of days, or I had an eye for the distance. I really felt like that would keep me in the game. Even if I didn't have a perfect shooting day, I had a good eye for the distance, and that would keep me competitive. So I would love to shoot the known because it takes that factor out. You know, they tell you the distance, you know, the spot. I'd like to challenge myself and see how the known archery game would be, but unfortunately we have to pick and choose, and I can't play both.
Yeah.
But I still do the unknown. I still love it. Like I said, that's what I feel like true 3D archery is. The known game has developed and brought, you know, hundreds and hundreds of more people to the ASA. The IBO is still all unknown. But as long as you're doing archery, I don't really care. Whether you shoot known
Right.
or unknown or crossbow or whatever, I don't really care. I don't really judge, but I think it's a great sport for all ages, and I'm going to hopefully continue to do as long as I'm healthy and able to. It's my true passion. It's what I love to do.
Yeah, I like the unknown yardage. Well, around here, you know, in eastern part of Nebraska, we didn't have any marked 3D yardages.
Hmm.
And they were, well, okay, here is the max that they're going to be. They're going to be anywhere from the max down to who knows where. Depending on which stake you as which division you're in, is whether you're shooting from the pro or the hunter
Right, right.
or the youth or whatever. That changes a little bit there. Um, because I'm hunting. That's what
Yeah.
I want to hunt. So a known yardage doesn't help me at judging yardage to that deer.
Right.
You know, so I like the unknown. So you're judging yardage, and I get it in the tree, and I'm looking at different areas, and I'm judging yardages to the different spots, and it wasn't until just a couple of years ago that I got a rangefinder.
Oh, wow.
You know, I think I was 65 when I got my first well, my one and only rangefinder. So
Wow.
until then, I've always been judging yardage.
Mhm.
And I think that really helps because you never know where the deer come in. And when I started, I didn't really know how to judge yardage. So until I learned, I know in college, we learned how to step off a pace. So I know 20 yards for me is 11 and a half steps. Because in orienteering, every time your foot hits the ground, like every time your left foot hits the ground, you would count one. So it'd start off, if you start with your right foot, I start with left foot. So every time my right foot would hit the ground, so I'd left foot, right foot one, left foot, right two. And I
Gotcha.
know 11 and a half steps is 20 yards. So I could step off and I knew what that was. A little bit hard when you're going up and down hills because your stride's a little bit different, but it gets you close. And I've been taken, and I had a 30-foot rope with me,
Okay.
10 yards.
Yeah.
So I'd hook it to a peg on the tree stand, and then I would pull it out, put a flag in there, 10 yards, take it off, go another flag. When you're in the field, you don't know how to judge yardage.
Sure.
You might think it's 30, you might think it's 20, you never know. So I'd mark it and I put little flags down there, little things that I knew what it was. I may put a stick up so I could say, okay, that is 20 yards, that's 30 yards, that's 10 yards. So, but with my bow set up, between 10 yards and 20 yards made no difference because it's only about an inch difference of where the impacted.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's I'm 53 now. I'll be 54, but I I was getting hot and heavy into archery when, laser rangefinders, they weren't a thing. It was, you had it looked like a camera and it had a picture of a deer, and I don't even know how it worked, but then the Bushnell came out with maybe it was the Yardage Pro something. It was as big as a lunchbox, it was pretty bulky, but
Yeah,
I had them, excuse me, I had them, and it was way better than, like you were saying, measuring off distances, putting out flags. I would use a tape measure and stick arrows like between me and my target butt. So every time I was shooting my bow, I could look at 5 yard or 10 yard increments with the arrows sticking in the ground, always getting a feel for what that distance was, or trying to find something that was recognizable to my eyes to say, okay,
right.
that's what I think that distance is. So yeah, before laser rangefinders, you had to get creative and really work at it if you wanted to try to hone that skill.
Yeah, and I've still got little brackets you mounted onto your sight, and it was tapered, and it had
Oh,
different numbers. Here's 20, 30, 40, as it got smaller and smaller. So
yeah.
the idea was to take and line up between the belly and the back and get your distance in there. Well,
Yeah,
that works if you're on the ground, sighting a one at the ground.
yeah.
If you're on a hill in a tree stand or a ladder stand, now that deer that's 20 yards away for a 20-yard shot is going to look like it's going to be sized like it might be 50 yards.
Yeah.
And then at that point, you can't use one of those because they're not accurate. So you want to go in and, figure them out. And I had one time the trail is 20 yards to the trail. And because what I do is I look at the trail, I look at the tree, follow the tree up till it's, level to where I'm at. And I judge that distance.
Yes.
And then I know that is down there at that other distance. I know that is the right distance. Well, I had a deer come walking down that trail. I knew the trail was 20 yards because I had, done that and estimated the yardage. But looking at that deer, it looked like it was a good 50-yard shot.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It was 20 yards because I shot it at 20 yards and I got the deer. So, I know it works. And when you think about it, gravity works horizontally. So how far horizontally is it traveling is how far it's going to drop. If it's only 20 yards horizontal, but you're 100 yards up, you're still going to shoot it for 20 yards.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't care how far it travels vertically.
Yeah, that's the magic of the cuts. I for years when I started, I was thinking you had to take off for downhill and add for uphill. You have to cut both ways.
Right.
And you'll learn that very easily if you ever go to Redding, California and shoot the Redding shoot. If you don't have a good sight tape and your cuts correct, you'll struggle to compete at that tournament because you shoot every distance imaginable at a lot of pretty interesting angles as well. But nothing like what the international field stuff was or world field. They shoot some crazy angles. But again, something that line of sight may be 40 yards, but you may only have to shoot it for like 36. It might be a 4-yard cut. So that's super technical and probably way over my skill set. I use computer programs to help me with short range conversion charts and things like that. So thank goodness for Archer's Advantage and other programs like that.
Yeah, I had, well, I'm not even sure what happened to it now, but I had one that would do your sight tape and everything.
Yep.
And you would put in the speed of the arrow. So you check the speed of the arrow. You have the weight of the arrow. You have the distance between your arrow and your
peep sight.
Mm-hmm. Full draw. All of those things in there, and it would calculate your distance for you. Yep. And actually, on my hunting bow, I set the 20-yard pin, set that tape underneath, and set my 30, 40, 50, all my other pins. And then I went out to the range and shot them. They were dead on.
Yeah, and it's technology's awesome when it's working.
Right. And that was nice on that. And I went to a 3D shoot, indoor 3D shoot, and they had a platform that was, I don't know, maybe 5-6 feet up in the air. But they put a gator that was about 5 feet away from it. So it was almost a straight down shot. And I knew on mine, to shoot that 5 feet, I had to use my 70-yard pin.
Yeah.
So because it's down so far, your form is this way. You bend at the hips. You don't drop your arm. Don't raise your arm. You have to bend at the hips. So I'm bending down, and I'm using the rail to not fall off the platform. So I'm leaning on it. I get down there and I draw through and I nail it. And then, of course, I have to take my other hand and grab the rail and pull myself back up because I'm leaning over so far.
Yeah, no, that's tricky. I know, like on my sight tape on my setup for Redding, we have a 3-yard shot and it's dead level, but I have to shoot it for like 60. I think it's 62 or 64 yards on my sight tape. I have to shoot that 3-yard shot. So it's hard for people to understand, but once you do it and figure out, where the arrow's coming off for your line of sight, your cuts, your angles, it's stuff you have to practice. If you've never shot those close shots or those steep angles, you wouldn't know where to aim. You just don't know what you don't know. So it's fun to learn that as you go on.
Yeah, I've talked about this on a couple of the podcasts as well. When those short leg shots, why do you have to shoot it for such high, yardage? Well, think about it. Your eyes is level with your sight. Where's the arrow? Down by your mouth. It's, what, 3-4 inches lower. So it's leaving your bow at 3 or 4 inches lower than where you're aiming. So you got to aim higher to get at those close yardage shots. And I was doing a video in my basement, and I got a bag, but I'm got it sitting on a concrete block wall that it's up too high. So I go back and then I go, so I got to bend up because I'm looking to say, okay, where is this going to go? Because it's only like about a 10 or 12 foot distance.
Yeah.
But I'm not worrying about where I'm hitting. I just need to hit the bag.
Right.
Because at that weight, I don't want to hit the bag or miss the bag and hit the brick wall and have the arrow come flying back at me.
For sure.
So you started shooting when you were pretty young then, didn't you?
I got into archery when I was little. And just no more than to watch arrows fly. I'd shoot them in the air just to watch how they would fly, and with recurves and very we'll say primitive compounds. I didn't get my first real bow until I was 15. But then I didn't really dive into archery until I turned 21. So 1991 is when I really discovered archery and the paths that I could take with indoors, 3D. I didn't realize indoor archery was a thing. I had driven by my local shop, Parker's Archery in Spencer, Indiana. Said big sign out by the road, Parker's Archery indoor range. I'm like, why in the world would people shoot a bow indoors? I had no idea it was even a thing. And stumbled in there one day and was exposed to a whole new world of what archery was, and just fell in love with it. I joined their leagues, continued to progress, and just had a thirst for it. I wanted to learn more about it. I wanted to compete. I wanted to figure out where I could shoot. I wanted to figure out how high I could take it. And, I had dreams of having it be a supplemental income. And for a lot of years, it's been, financially, it's been a big benefit to me and my family. And it's been a great sport. I don't know what else I'd be doing if I hadn't had archery for all these years. It's just who I am and what I do, and I don't know where I'd be or what I'd be doing without bows and arrows.
Yeah, it's nice sport because you don't need a lot of room to shoot.
Mm-mm.
You can shoot, a little bit more, habited area.
Yep.
You still got to look for, okay, where can the arrow go? And you need to, make sure you plan for that so that you don't have, errant arrows flying off in some place you don't want them to go.
I have just about shot my neighbors more than once, but not on purpose by any means. But no, I've got about 6 acres here at home. I've got probably 30 Reinhardt targets and probably 40 McKenzie's, that I, depending on the season and where we're at in tournament season, I bring them in and out. I don't leave them set out all the time because the weather's so hard on them. But
Right.
in 2006, I built a 30 by 70 building. I built my own indoor range, have all the 3D targets, have the terrain to practice. I've got a bow shop in my basement. I've got another bow shop out there in my range just for my own personal use. So I tell people all the time, if you like archery, my house is a pretty cool place to hang out. So
Yeah.
it's fun stuff.
Yeah, it'd be kind of cool to hang out and have some shooting and play
Yep.
around with archery equipment and
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, I got a wood stove out in my range. I got a couch out there, 55-inch TV, and bow presses. I mean, anything you need to do to work on archery equipment, I have it here. So it it consumed me, and that's just what I do. It's who I am and it's what I do.
and it's a good obsession to have.
I think so.
You got to be obsessive, right?
That's right.
That's how you get ahead in the sport and life, everything else. Got to be obsessed.
Obsessed. Yes, right. Passionate, obsessed, hungry, I guess. Yeah, all of it. Every adjective you can think of, I had it at one time or another.
Yeah. So I know in your long career of shooting, you probably got some pretty neat stories of some hunting trips you've been on. Um, what's probably the most memorable hunt you've been on?
Um, I used to go to Kansas. Being in the tournament archery world, I became friends with Levi Morgan, and most people know who Levi is, and if they don't, they should, Google him and see what he's done with his career and his TV show. And I hunted with Levi and Samantha in Illinois one year, and had never hunted with a camera guy, didn't know what it was like. Um, it was different. It was really different. But he always told me, he said, "Man, you got to go to Kansas with us." And I was like, "Okay, one of these days I will." And a couple years later, I got to go out there and hunt with Sean Evans and his family. So I won't say it's just one hunt that's most memorable, just that camp culture. He had guys that came in and stayed that hunted public land from Wisconsin. We called them the Wisconsin boys. Guys from Illinois were always there when we were there. Guys from out east, New Jersey area were always there in camp. And of course, Levi and his camera guys in camp trying to make a TV show. We had so much fun out there and just met really cool people. Like I said, Sean and Sarah Evans are amazing people that brought us into their home and their property and made us feel like family. And we got to kill some amazing deer. I got to watch Levi and Samantha build some pretty cool TV shows while I was there in camp with them, and just fun. I took what used to be a long season here at home. Our season comes in October 1st, and you can hunt with a bow basically the rest of the year. And I would do that at times, hunt 2 or 3 evenings through the week, almost every weekend or every other weekend. I had enjoyed the camp life so much. Like in Kansas, I've been to Ohio, I've been to Kentucky, been to Illinois, been to a few states hunting, but just that camp atmosphere was so attractive to me that I condensed my hunting season. Instead of doing it, 30 days throughout season, I would just do 5 or 7 days in a hunt camp somewhere and just got more enjoyment out of it. Because I want to practice all the time. And every time I'm sitting in a tree stand, I'm looking at my phone going, gosh, I could be doing so much other stuff right now instead of sitting here waiting on this deer. But I guess long story short, my most memorable hunts come from Kansas. Some of my biggest deer experiences, the way deer react in Kansas to calls, to antlers, to rattling. If you've been lucky enough to be in those magical few days of November somewhere in Kansas, you know what I'm talking about. It's a great place. It's a very special state.
Yeah, that's there. There's a lot to have, when you're in that time when they're rutting and the calls work. And
Yeah,
unfortunately here in Nebraska for us archers, the rifle season is like the second week of November. So
gotcha.
when the rut's really going strong is during rifle season and
Yeah,
not during archery season. And kind of disadvantaged, but hey, we get to get in the field first.
yeah. No,
So
I was always amazed at how visible. Kansas it's a lot of rolling flat areas. You see CRP. If you find some trees and some water or a river, you got a special spot. But as wide open as it is, I mean, we'd see these great big bucks standing over a doe. They'd have them locked down, and I'm just like, this is a rifle state, and these deer are so visible. I don't know how they keep producing the big deer like they do, because I just feel like almost every deer doesn't stand a chance, but they are brutal survivors. And
yeah,
every year I was out there, we got to see some really amazing quality animals. And it shocked me that rifle states, Indiana just became a rifle state in recent years. We didn't have a rifle season. We were always slug guns and muzzle loaders and archery. So I never really understood how rifle states manage their deer herd. And it still amazes me that how visible some deer are in some states that they survive gun season.
yeah, and here in Nebraska with gun season during the rut, the bucks are out more,
Yep.
so it's a little bit easier to get to them. And I know one year when I had my archery store, um, I was a deer check station, and they'd moved rifle 1 week later. I was amazed at how many archers was bringing in big bucks
Yeah.
during that week prior that was normally allocated to rifle season. They did it one time, and the rifle hunters complained enough they moved it back. You know, they want to be able to get those big bucks too. So
Yeah.
um,
No.
it's hey, like I said, we get to get in there early, and that weekend, that Friday before rifle was always a good day. you know, that's the time to be out in the fields. If you have an area that produces a lot of deer, that's
Yeah.
the day to be in there, because the rut's already started, just not quite as hard as is the next week. But
Yeah.
hey, it's what it is, right?
Rut's a special time of year. I mean, when those bucks get going like they do and chase the girls like they do, it's if you've witnessed it, it's really something. That's that's the most memorable stuff I have from Kansas would be seeing, you know, 14 or 15 bucks in a day that would probably score excuse me 140 inches or better, or see 5 bucks coming through a field single file chasing the same doe just as fast as they could go. And I'm just like, I didn't see that stuff in Indiana. I hunt wood lots and, you know, pinch points and things like that. It's not as open and not as visible where we were hunting. I'm sure there's spots like that in Kansas, but just to experience the rut and seeing deer react like you hope they would react, or, you know, the deer on TV are always coming into antlers, or they're always coming into a grunt call, or you always see 4 or 5 bucks chasing the same doe. I've got to experience that firsthand, and that's my memorable hunts, is being able to just watch what nature's really doing on those special 2 weeks in certain areas of certain states.
Yeah, that's definitely something to, to really look forward to in the states that you can do that. And
Yeah.
I know, you know, you say, creating a video for them, I during the last rifle season, I had my camera with me and a little tripod, and I'm trying, I wanted to record it, and
Yeah.
it's quite a bit just on my phone, but these phones have so much uh high quality cameras in them that, you know, I would have to spend probably $5,000 or $6,000 to get a digital camera. It does what my phone does.
Yeah, it's
So why
crazy.
use one?
Yeah.
It's nice to have ones for other things, but um, so you got to get your phone started, and you got to wait for it to come in, and then can you see it? And I can see how, when they put together all this stuff, it's not easy, because if the camera can't see the deer, you can't kill it.
Yeah,
His
you
idea is to get it on camera.
can't make a show. Yeah, you gotta get it on
Yeah.
camera, you can't make a show.
Yeah, there's no show. So,
Yeah.
and I know, because I create a lot of videos for my YouTube channel and all kinds of stuff, and I edit all those. I don't edit the podcast just because there's no reason to. But when you're creating a video, you're having all these little cuts and pieces, and then you're trying to merge them all together and make something that looks decent. And it's a lot of work for those that haven't done it. How much work it is to put together a video like that.
I wouldn't trade shoes with the people that are putting high quality TV shows out for anything, because they, you know, the camera guys are charging batteries. They have a pack of nothing but camera gear and camera arms and batteries and lenses and SD cards and hard drives, and it's a massive amount of work. And then a lot of times when things happen fast, a lot of the stuff you're seeing in the TV show was filmed after the deer was already taken. They call it B-roll. You know,
Right.
we gotta go back and stage, you know, the deer coming in, or, you know, me reaching around to get my bow, or hooking the release on, and oh, here he comes. You know, that's all done after the deer's already been killed in a lot of instances. So it's it's quite a lot of work. And I think people see the finished product but can't really appreciate the amount of effort that goes into what those shows are producing until you've seen it firsthand. And I'm telling you what, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. I've had some videos that the whole thing was like an hour and a half long. It took me 3 hours to edit to get a 45-minute video out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's like I said, I wouldn't trade those guys. I wouldn't trade them places for nothing, because, you know, it's there's no 40-hour work week that time of year. You know, they're
No.
running on minimal sleep and burning the midnight oil, and, you know, sitting all day sits, and up in the stand way before daylight, in the stand after dark. And I mean, it's a lot of work for those guys to capture a good quality hunt, to produce it for public eye. It's, like I said, it's a ton of work.
Yeah, and then you have a lot of them where they're showing the arrow or bullet, whatever, killing the animal, and then they have to go back, and then all the other stuff that
Yep.
like you said, the B rolls where you
Yep.
back and get the fill in stuff, and
Yep.
and that's a lot of work. And
Yeah.
we just have to give those guys that put those things on, a little bit of a little bit of credit and a little leeway on some of the stuff that looks like it's not quite right.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, you got to tell the story because a lot of stuff happens in split, well, especially during the rut. I mean, you may have 30 seconds to get this deer, and it's basically, are you on him? Yep, boom, shoot the deer. Okay, now we have to produce a show. We just
Right.
killed this giant deer, but we have to get the story up to that point. So that's where the B-roll and the editing and filming, hooking the release on and all that stuff. But yeah, it takes a creative mind and a lot of time to build that stuff to you know put out there for all the fans that watch it. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, and until I started doing editing, my own videos,
Excuse me.
realizing how much work it was, I knew there was a challenge because if the camera can't see it, you can't shoot it. You might have a perfect shot, you can see it just fine, everything's all good, but the camera, it's too dark for the camera to pick it up. You gotta let it go.
Yeah,
And that's the part that, you know, you don't understand on that. When we're just out hunting, I'm out to get the meat. So I don't, if it's recorded, great. If it's not, well, okay. I'm not trying to produce a show.
yeah,
Um, it'd be nice to have that video just so that I can put it on my channel. But you know how that goes.
yeah, yeah. No, I've got some video clips of some kills over the years, and it's fun to have that stuff to look back, and it makes me think about the hunt and what the weather was like, and some hunts. I drove 10 hours to Kansas, and first set within 2 hours was tagged out. But then I've also been like, okay, I was only supposed to be here for 5 days. I'm on my seventh morning because they're like, hey, just go ahead and stay, see if you can kill. And last set, last few minutes. So it's
Yeah.
uh it's very, very interesting, and they all have their own unique story.
Yeah, I know. I've got some trail cameras out. I've got two areas. One area, they must have moved through at night. So I got the cameras up, and there's a little spike, and then a nice sized deer, and then two kind of, they're probably year and a halfs. Not really big racks. They're, if you're gonna shoot for bucks, then those you wouldn't shoot those. And there's two of them come in, and they come in and walk around. Well, one night I got them. They kind of walk through, and then they come back, and they kind of played around sparring, and then for a little while, and then they just walked off together.
Yeah, yeah. I call them bachelor groups.
Yeah.
They're back together this time of year. I got a buddy of mine that hunts a property not too far from where I hunt at typically, and he sent me, I don't know how many pictures he sent me the other day, but there was 4 and 5 bucks in every picture. They're back together now. They're no longer enemies while the rut's going on, but it's interesting to see what they do and how they change throughout the season. And it won't be long, they're going to be dropping antlers. We'll be able to look for sheds again here. So time comes and goes so stinking fast.
Yeah. And I've got some videos that the deer, I think, was basically stuck its nose on the camera.
Yeah.
It's up there, it's just all blurry, this little kind of little glow halo around it, and it's like, okay, I know it's a deer because you can see them coming in, but it's just kind of weird looking picture because they're just so close to it.
Yeah, they're curious animals. I have a lot of them with on video. Get them sniffing the camera, and they look right into it or something. They're curious animals.
Yeah, and it's there all the time, so it's not spooking them or anything. So tell us about probably your most challenging hunt you've had.
Challenging. That would probably be, what year was the last year I was out there? The last year we were in Kansas, we had a place we hunted called the Canyon, and if there was no snow on the ground, you could drive back through a field and access the canyon pretty easily depending on the wind direction. But with the wind direction coming out of I think it was out of the north or northwest, we had to come in from a different road to get there. And we had got like 10 inches of snow the night before. So A, we couldn't drive where we wanted to drive. And B, we had to walk, oh my gosh, a long way through 10 inches of snow. And it was cold. I mean, it was freezing cold that morning. Of course, we get to the stand and you're just sweating like crazy.
Yeah.
Get set up. watch it break daylight. You can easily see the deer with all the snow on the ground. We set that morning until we couldn't take it any longer, and then went back for lunch. Um, and I guess most challenging was just the elements, you know, hiking in there, sweating, just exhausted by the time you get to your tree stand, and then sit there and your temperature cools down. And then you start to just, I mean, we had heater bodysuits, we had, you know, hand warmers, we had everything that to try to keep you in the stand as long as you could be there. And it was just like, I'm over it. Let's go get some lunch. Let's go warm up. Um, Lo and behold, it gets up to, I don't know, up close to 30 degrees the next day, and all the snow starts to melt. And that second evening, I killed probably my biggest buck to date. So that wasn't the challenging part. But after after we went through the cold, the next day we're hiking in with all the snow, everything melting, but the creek's a lot higher than it had been before. So we're walking through spots. I had water down on my boots because I stepped through the creek where it was deeper than I thought it was going to be. We hunted a stand that we hadn't hunted in a while. I just about dropped my bow off into the creek because we sat right on the creek. So it was just like I got up in there, didn't have my binoculars. I had to borrow the binoculars from the camera guy that was with me because I'm like, dude, I'm so unprepared. You know, we had everything you could imagine that morning, fighting the freezing cold and all the temperatures. And then the next day it was like, okay, it's warm enough now. Just battling the different elements, I guess. That's probably what I would say my most challenging would be, just battling Mother Nature out there, you know, trying to adapt to what she's got to offer. And I used to be able to tough it out when I was younger. I just told my wife the other day, I said, the older I get, the less I like this cold weather. We've had some below freezing temperatures here in Indiana in the past few days, and I'm over it. So same way with hunting. I guess I'd be a fair weather hunter now. If it's 32 and sunny, I'm all about it. If it's 3 degrees and windy, I'd rather sit and watch football or something.
Yeah, I know. We just went through a couple weeks of below zero temperatures here, and
Yeah.
you know, we had, I think one was down to -17, and we're at wind chills -20 and above or below, and you know, this next week it's supposed to be in the 30s. So heat wave, t-shirt weather.
Yeah, I was out in Iowa, not this past weekend, but the weekend before for the Iowa Pro-Am when they got their blizzard, you know. So 4, 5, 6, 8 inches of snow, whatever they had, 30, 40 mile an hour winds, 17 below zero temperature, 40 below wind chill. Yeah, not my kind of weather at all.
Yeah, that was the weather we had here because I'm in
Yeah,
Nebraska, so I'm not too far away from there. We hit it and they hit it, and
I'm not jealous of that kind of weather. I promise you that. I don't like it.
well, there's still one road that's about a stretch on Highway 92, about 5 miles long, that is still, you can see there's on the side you're going through, and the mounds are about 12 feet high around there. And you know, I go between Highway 66 and 92, and there's a road that goes past you know, a stockyard, and that drifts in, and even this morning it was still wasn't two complete lanes. You know, still part of the one lane was a little bit covered, and you know, it's, you know, that in that 30 that that day there was that about 5 or 6 miles, and there was 30 cars got stranded, and it took them like 3 or 4 days to even get it cleared where you could drive through it.
I was amazed and actually impressed at how good the highway departments there kept the roads, because the wind was, it was a real light, fluffy snow. It wasn't a heavy, wet, you know, 30-degree snow where you get a wet pack. It was real light that would blow easily in the wind. And it I was impressed at how good and how prepared some states are for weather like that. And the roads were easily accessible. I mean, I had four-wheel drive and had it in four-wheel drive, and needed four-wheel drive at times, but still they very impressed with how prepared they are for that kind of weather and how well they maintain the roads during those stretches of weather.
Yeah, I know. After that, I went back to, you know, that week I missed a couple days work. Next week I took the interstate because it was clear. You know, that highway still wasn't open, and I tried going there this morning, and I said, well, I'll go that because I come home Friday that way, and it was there. You know, one lane on that little spur that goes through there, but so I went to go out there, and I get home almost to Highway 92, and a train's blocking the road. So I would turn around, take another little shot, and then instead of going on the interstate, which clear back the other way, so I have to go north, but I got to go south to get to the interstate. And so I go around, I get on the highway, it should come out, you know, right where, past where all that problem was. And I get almost there, road's closed, got to take a detour. So I'm detouring around, and I finally get there. It's like 45 minutes to get to the highway, which only takes me about 45 minutes to get to work. And then I still had to go the rest of the 30 miles to get to work.
Oh, yeah, no, there's nothing convenient about bad weather and closed roads. Nothing convenient about it.
Yeah. So I come home then interstate. I'll probably this week I'll probably still keep going to interstate because it's a little bit longer. It's about 5 minutes longer, about 5 miles longer, but I know it's clear.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't have to hassle with the roads not being very clear. Yeah. So I know you've been to a lot of 3D targets. Tell us about some of the 3D shoots. Tell us about some of those and what it's like shooting on nose, some of your memorable ones there.
Gosh, probably. I mean, I've traveled all over. I went to Australia in 2007 and 2009 to I did I guess like a seminar, basically question and answer seminar, and shot their nationals. And then I've shot every IBO and every ASA with the exception of about two for a lot of years. I haven't missed a tournament. I missed one when my father passed and when my son graduated high school. That's the only two tournaments I could ever remember missing on the ASA tour, the IBO, since I started shooting. But probably my most memorable is back in it either be 2003 or 2006. I turned pro in 2002, and you're always, when it's self-funded, when you don't have sponsors paying for everything that you do, there's a little more sense of urgency to try to do well or figure out if you fit in, because it's not cheap. When you're
Oh,
paying $300+ for an entry fee, gasoline there and back, hotel rooms, meals, or plane tickets, whatever it might be, it's not cheap to compete. Anybody can be a professional archer. Not everybody can compete as a professional archer. So uh, I wanted to be competitive and had to quickly learn, you can't have a lot of years. My rookie season, let's just back up a little. My rookie year, I spent $11,000 out of my pocket to travel to all the archery tournaments that I wanted to attend, and I won about $4,000 back. So I lost $7,000 of my family's money to go chase my dream. And I quickly realized, and I mean, that was 2002. I quickly realized that you can't play at this level unless you become more competitive at this level. So I kept
right.
working hard. 2003, I actually won the IBO Triple Crown. So for a second year pro, to jump in and compete against the likes of Jeff Hopkins, Jack Wallace, Eric Griggs, Tony Taza, Nathan Brooks. I mean, some of the greats of that time and still today, to jump in there as a second year pro and win a title. I hadn't won an individual tournament yet, so I still felt like I was missing something.
Right.
But to break through and actually, win a $10,000 bonus from Matthews and, win some money for some podium finishes and look back and go, okay, I didn't lose money this year. That's that was a refreshing way to approach it, because it's, it becomes a financial burden. I was working full time and young family, but had dreams of playing, being a professional archer, and it takes finances to do that. And luckily, after I won the Triple Crown, I was able to pick up some financial help with sponsors, and have been very fortunate to have some sort of financial help for a lot of years from a lot of great manufacturers. So it took the burden of the urgency of having to win, but put another sense of urgency on you where you have to perform to maintain your paycheck. Hey, I
Right.
have to do something to deserve what I'm getting from these companies. I can't just be complacent and be like, oh, okay, they're paying the bill, I don't have to shoot good anymore. That's not the case. So the pressure went from I'm losing my own money to I have to continue to earn my spot. And that was a better place for me. It was a lot easier for me to compete knowing it was kind of a safety net, I guess you would say. But yeah, 2003 winning that Triple Crown was like a breakthrough moment for me. I made a couple of shoot offs in the next couple of years, but I didn't win my first individual tournament until 2006. And then that year I won like 6 events. I won 4 individual tournaments. I won the Triple Crown again, won an ASA Shooter of the Year that year, which was the biggest accomplishment I've probably done in my career. But that's just part of the 3D game, part of the 3D love that I have, and being able to cash a few checks along the way to help support my hobby was awesome, you know. And I have people reach out, you know, even today, hey, I want to shoot for a living. I'm like, man, that's a tough road to travel right there, you know. So it's, you can shoot for supplemental income if you can manage your finances and you can compete. You can win some cool money and some big dollars if you win the right tournaments. But to say I'm not going to work and I'm going to shoot for a living in today's world where the competition is ridiculous, it's just almost unheard of for someone to say they're going to shoot for a living in 2024. It's not easy.
Yeah, I know I seen a post on I think it was Facebook where a guy and a lady, I think it was Paige and another guy, 360x, both of them.
Page and Chris Perkins, and that's just the norm on the 5 spot. If you don't shoot a 60x on the 5 spot, it's, I mean, it's nothing. I mean, when I started shooting and competing, 118 X's out of 120 would make the shoot off in the pro division. They were 2 off of perfect. Now there'll be 25 guys and half a dozen women shoot perfect scores, 600s with 120 X's. The level of shooting is unbelievable. Mike Schlosser, Matthias Fullerton, Stefan Hansen. Stefan did it at the Rushmore Rumble a few weeks ago. He shot a 300 with 60X on the blue face and then turned around and shot 300 with 30X's on the Vegas face the next day, cleaned the whole tournament. Matthias Fullerton never missed a Super X in Nîmes, France this past weekend and got knocked out. He got beat on a 1 arrow closest to center in his like 2nd or 3rd match. Never missed a baby X the whole weekend and got knocked out of the tournament. It's just like, how is that even possible? So yeah, the level of shooting and the depth of the field, the depth of competitors that are capable of shooting these scores now is insane. Just really, I appreciate good shooting because I know how hard it is. And to watch these guys and gals do it on week in, week out at a tournament when there are big dollars on the line is super impressive. Just super impressive to watch the quality of archery we're witnessing in these days and ages for sure.
Yeah, that's something that, you know, I remember, you know, on the blue face target, you know, you're getting 298, you know, you're winning 298, 299, you know, and then, you know, 20, 30x, and now if you don't get 300, you're not even close to being in the game.
Yeah, they don't even know you were there.
Yeah, you're if you don't get 300, you're holding up the last end.
Yeah, if the guys that shoot 59 out of 60, you know, ask them how you do, they're like, oh, I dropped one. And I mean, it is because you literally, if you miss one, you cannot win in the open pro division. If you miss one, you cannot win. I almost, Vegas is 2 weeks away. I'll be leaving 2 weeks from Wednesday for Las Vegas, or actually a week from Wednesday for Vegas. And I anticipate, wouldn't surprise me a bit to see somebody shoot 90 X's out there this year. A 900 with 90 X's would not surprise me a bit to see a perfect score shot.
Yeah, it's possible.
And they still may not win because all the 900s will make the shoot off. And then if you happen to miss one throughout the shoot off, sudden death, then, you know, you could still lose. Even though you were the best archer for 3 days consistently, you still have to survive that big, massive shoot off that could be, you know, 16, 18, 20, 22 people, 22 men and women. The women are shooting 900s too. So it's very common to see perfect scores, and it wouldn't surprise me to see a perfect score with a perfect X count this year. That's how good the archery is that we're watching right now.
And if you're not shooting that level, no big deal.
Yeah, no, that's a fact. You know, archery doesn't have to be a game of perfection. I'm not trying to talk people out of it by any means, because there's only a few people on the planet that can achieve perfection. consistently. You know, it takes a special mindset, it takes a special person to do that. But there are multiple classes, multiple divisions within these organizations, so you can compete at your skill set, at your skill level. You don't have to shoot against the open pros to enjoy archery by any means.
Well, and you're really only shooting against yourself.
Yes, that's a fact. But
Did I do as good or better today than I did yesterday?
unfortunately,
If I
human nature won't allow us to do that. We have to, get the thought process in there. Oh gosh, I could win.
yeah, that they get in your own head, that's when you lose. When you're thinking about, because as soon as you think of, okay, I got to get this. I can't miss. I can't miss.
Yep.
So what did you
Yep.
tell yourself?
Yep.
Miss. Your mind
Yep.
will see miss. It's going to say miss, miss. So
Careful what you wish
for.
for. Yeah.
So
Careful what you wish for.
It's a lot of mind game that you got to play with yourself. And once you train yourself, that you only focus on where the arrow needs to be in the center of the X.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
that's all you're doing, it's like center X, center X. That's all you're thinking about. Nothing else in your mind. More times than not, you're gonna be hitting that center X.
Yeah, it's the majority of people, and myself included, I just love to shoot. So I spend an absurd amount of time on the mechanics and working through the shot and the repetition of it. But in today's age, if you want to be competitive and even win within your division, you have to work on the mental aspect. Have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because if you're at the brink of winning your first tournament ever, you're going to be a little bit uncomfortable, and you have to learn how to deal with that. So mental training is just as important as the physical training when it comes to archery. So for anybody out there that's thinking about becoming a competitive archer, work on your mind too. Your equipment's important, but your mind's just as important.
That's gonna make you miss. The bow is untuned bow is still gonna shoot the same every time.
Yep.
So you don't have to worry about your bow being perfectly tuned. When you put a broadhead on, that's when things get a little bit more tricky on tuning. But we're not
Yes.
talking about, shooting broadheads at targets. We're shooting field tips.
Yes.
So they're going to fly the same every time. If that arrow takes off and has a little weird wiggle in it, it's going to weird wiggle every time you shoot that same arrow. Now, if you shoot a different arrow, it might be slightly different depending on how it's fletched and everything else. But
Yeah.
that arrow is going to shoot. If you shoot a shooting machine, it's going to put that arrow in the same spot every time.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
what's the difference?
If you can find a forgiving setup to the human error, if you're making inconsistent mistakes and you have something that's forgiving, that's the ideal thing. But you're right. The bow doesn't know who's shooting it. The bow doesn't know it's just a machine. It should repeat every single time as long as you don't interrupt it. In theory, it should. Add some wind, add some footing, add some other factors in there. You never know. But you're right. Even if it's tuned or not, it should repeat. It should.
Right. Well, and then if you go out in the morning and it's cold, so you start outside and it's 45 degrees in the morning. Well, it gets up to 90 degrees that day. Well, the person shooting in the morning at 45, their bow's going to act differently when they shoot in the afternoon at 90.
Yeah.
So how do you account for that? Well, you practice. Shooting that 45-degree weather, see what your bow does. See what it does when it warms up. 50, 60, 70, 80, 90.
Yeah.
How does it act when it's hot? Because everything changes. Your strings going to act different. Your lubes that you use in your axles are going to be a little different because they're cold. They're going to freeze, especially here in Nebraska and like so in Iowa. If you're outdoors and it's minus 17 raw temperature, your bow's not going to like to be out there. Neither are you. But
yeah, no, for sure.
And then you bring, you're in the car. It's in the trunk. And then it's cold. You get there, bring it in, and now it's cold. You pick it up, and it's cold, and it warms up. And then as it warms up more and more, it's going to shoot differently.
Yeah, there's a lot of contributing factors that can work for you and work against you. So yeah, and it's practice. You're right, practicing all the elements. If you're going to hunt when it's below zero outside, you're going to have a lot of clothes on. You better be practicing with those clothes on, because if not, when you draw your bow back, it's going to feel so awkward to you. You're going to be uncomfortable. You won't know what to expect. So yeah, it's expose yourself to every element possible. If you're looking for success, you need to experience it.
Yeah, and practicing during the summertime with all the clothes on is kind of tough. So you almost have to, okay, season's over, I can't hunt anymore. Before it really gets warmed up, go out in, like here in Nebraska, go out in February, March, and shoot with those big heavy clothes on. Although February, we do have some nice days. The one club used to have a shoot like in the middle of February sometime. And it always seemed like by the afternoon, you're in a t-shirt. This is February in Nebraska. Yeah, it just seems like every year when they had one, it was a nice day that day.
Yeah, I don't know that I get to wear a t-shirt too many days in February here. I'd take it though. I would take it.
Yeah. Well, when you're used to being minus 17 and it's up to
Yeah.
35,
Yeah.
that's almost 5th degree warmer.
Yeah, that's a big change.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, I still don't because it's still pretty cold. I don't want to be out. I might run outside real quick and come back in, but I'm not going to stay out there very long because I know in Nebraska, it gets cold. It gets at night. It gets really cold.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's got some interesting stories, and that's why I like listening to all these different stories. That's why I ask some of those questions because I like to hear about the memorable hunts and the exciting hunts and the challenging hunts, and it makes like, oh, okay, I haven't had that challenging of a hunt.
Yeah, no, I don't. Mine weren't super challenging. I haven't been on like a sheep hunt to where the terrain is treacherous or had to hike. I've never been elk hunting. That's something I want to do one of these days. I've never chased. I love to chase turkeys, and I feel like I've had people say elk's basically a turkey on steroids because they're vocal. You can call to them; they'll respond to calls. Got to fool their nose, where a turkey you don't have to fool their nose. So
Yeah.
it's just I haven't been on any real challenging hunts with terrain or where you've had to be in great physical shape to do it. Most of my stuff is tree stand hunting in the Midwest is basically what I do.
Yeah, and I like the tree stand hunting, whether in a tree stand. I actually prefer it over a blind.
Yes, I don't like
Really
blind
cold.
hunting at all.
The blinds are nice because you're a little warmer in them.
Yeah,
I just don't like the restriction on visibility. I can see out the windows. That's about it.
yeah,
I can't see behind me because you have it all blocked behind you, and you have it kind of blocked on the side, so you really can't see much just right in front of you. And I just don't like the limited visibility. I like to be in the tree stand, be up in the tree, and that way I can look around and I can hear what's going on. I can look and see, and I prefer it. I've talked to many archers, and they just love shutting out of a blind.
yeah. If it's raining, I like a blind. If it's not
Right.
raining, I don't want to be anywhere near
Yeah.
it.
Well, and then too, we talked a little earlier at those close range shots. When you're in a blind, you're shooting at a matter of 2 or 3 feet from your target because the blind is that close to you.
Yeah,
You're at full draw, and that blind is just a matter of maybe a foot or two at most in front of your arrow, and that's why a lot of them will actually shoot through your blind with the broadhead and not through the window you're supposed to shoot through, and because they don't realize that the arrow is so low. And so you got to really make sure that when you look at that and look, where's your arrow going to go?
yeah.
And that's something to think about when you're shooting out of a blind. Now, some of them have the vertical shooting areas. Then you don't have to worry about it. But the one I have is just a horizontal area. But if they got them vertical slots to shoot out of, then you don't have to worry about it.
Not as limited.
Yeah. So you just need to know you're blind, and maybe you need to take a little higher chair or put a little pillow on it or something and get you raised up so that you don't miss it, and make sure your
Do
bow's
like
not so tall it hits the ceiling.
or do like me and just hunt when the weather's nice. You won't have to worry about it. You can sit in your stand.
Yeah. Yeah. I've actually camped in our blind more than I've used it for hunting.
Oh wow.
I know my son was in scouts, and we took it was the little pop-up blind, and it had the mesh in the front of it. Now we're camping in the summertime, so it's not quite so bad. And we get there and we set up, and it's all real quick, and then we camp. We stayed in there. Was at scout camp, and then somebody's like, "How'd you set up so quick?" So I tore it down, put it back up, tore it down, put it away. everybody else has got the little poles running through the
Yeah.
tent, and I just popped it up and away it went.
Insta tent, I like it.
Yeah. I did put a little canopy over the top of it so that, if it did rain, at least it would come in the windows. But that didn't take long to do.
Right.
So you can camp on 'em. It didn't have much of a floor because they're not really designed to have floors in them, but I didn't care.
Yeah. No, I hunted in Ohio 2 years ago, and we had some pretty crappy weather. It'd be about the best way to describe it. It rained a lot, and they had shooting houses. It was, I mean, this property was just friends of ours, just nothing but deer hunting, and the food plots, and they had everything you could imagine there, and they had these shooting houses, and I. When we discussed where we were going to hunt, I told him, I said, I want to hunt out of a stand. Well, we had 2 full days of light rain. I have never appreciated shooting houses so much in my life. There was room, there was room to move. I could get comfortable. I could look out the windows. I stayed dry. Yeah, there's a time and place for all that, but I really enjoyed the shooting houses during the rain showers for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, when it's raining, it's no fun to be in the tree stand. I've
Mm-mm.
been there.
Yeah.
My son and I and the guy home with us all the time, we went out. It's talking about rain. It's supposed to quit raining, like right about sunrise. So if we're going to go out, get in the tree stand, and it's not a hard rain, it's just, kind of a annoying rain. And, we're looking at the forecast and it's like, okay, well, instead of being, it's going to be 7 before it quits. And then it's going to be 8 before it quits. And then it's going to be 9 before it quits. We said, forget it. We're leaving. I'm not going to sit here all day in the rain because it's hard to track deer in the rain. I've done it one time. Um, so we started walking out. We're heading down the hill. My son's back, we're walking together. And all of a sudden, here's this doe standing broadside, about 20 yards away from us, looking at us. So I tell Chris, like, okay, get behind me, get your arrow ready, and then you get ready, step out beside me and then shoot. But it didn't wait long enough for him to do that. But that was one of those things that, he didn't remember it, but I did.
Yeah.
you know,
Making memories.
yeah. And I had another time, hunting in the rain, that one of the guys I used to hunt with, he was going to go hunt. And it's, them light misty rains. I was like, nah, I don't want to go. But he was going to go anyway. And I knew he was going to sit in my tree stand and kill a deer out of my tree stand. So I went. So I killed a deer out of my tree stand.
Oh.
And so I come out, here it was. So I shot it and it turned around and run. And there was really no blood because it was enough rain. You really couldn't see much blood after a while. So I'm looking at footprints because I could see where it runs. So I knew where the footprints. And I followed it, and then I went down the trail, and we got it, and we hauled it out. But I actually tracked it by footprints in the mud.
Lucky.
Yeah, because it didn't go very far because it was a good hit, but
Good.
still. Yeah, we have a lot of cool stories sometimes. I know that it was an abandoned railroad track where we was hunting off of. So when we got it, was easy to haul out because it just walked down the road track because the tracks were all gone. Well, I'm going out one time and I'm walking down. I just know we're walking. I'm not being quiet or nothing because I hadn't seen anything all day. And I'm walking down this trail, all the gravel and stuff on it from being the old trains. And I look over to my right, and here's this deer laying down, just looked up at me. It was probably 10 yards away. Looked up at me and just ignored me, and I kept walking. Because one of the ladies that lived up on top hill would walk that track all the time. That's what she'd go walk it. So the deer was used to somebody walking up and down the trail. That didn't bother him. If I'd have stopped, that deer would have been gone. If I'd have stopped and tried to come back, I knew it was going to be gone because you're not going to get back quiet enough to get to it. So I just said, forget it. I'm not even going to try on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all have kind of stories like that.
Yeah. No, that's. I was sitting there thinking as you were saying that, you talked about challenging hunts, and I didn't even really think of this till of a challenging hunt. I went one day. Oh gosh, I don't know. It's probably been 4 years ago, probably, where I pull into my spot. I have to do like a little S curve around a bean field, and then it's a road that splits a bean field cornfield to get back to where we to park. Well, as I made the S curve, I looked out into the bean field and I could see a really nice buck out there standing over a doe in a cut bean field. And I'm like, well, how in the world am I going to do this? I went ahead. I knew it was a west wind that day, so the wind is at my back. So I just drive completely past these deer, and they stay right there in the field. Parked far enough into the wood line where I could walk the wood line and get like perpendicular with them or even with them. So the wind's still hitting me in the face. I sit there. Oh gosh, this was an on the ground hunt. Basically, walked out to the edge of the field waiting for this doe to get up and hopefully come to me. Long story short, I end up shooting this buck at 66 yards. He made a big loop around me. Went out the next morning. This was of an evening. Went out the next morning, tracked him. I didn't find that deer. For 10 days later, I found him literally 30 yards from where I quit looking at. I went out and did circles and looped and looped and looped and looped and looked for this deer, thinking I had put a good enough shot on him to find him. But unfortunately, I didn't get anything but the head and antlers, but did find the deer, found my arrow, but had to figure out a way to try to get in front of this deer without spooking him, and eased up to that wood line, waited for him patiently. I didn't have any gloves on, wind blowing like crazy, cold like crazy. And then to make a long shot like that in the wind in an open field was, I'll say, lucky at best. I shoot enough where I feel like I'm pretty accurate. I don't like taking those long shots. I want stuff at 20 or 25 yards, ideal for me. But that's probably one of my more challenging hunts was, trying to keep from spooking this deer, driving past them, trekking through the woods to get even with them, and then play the waiting game to see if you could actually get a shot. And the closest shot I was going to get was at 66, and I was very lucky. I didn't harvest the deer, I guess you couldn't say, but I did find him eventually 10 days later. But almost a success story.
Yeah, I actually had one very similar. It was with a big buck. It was a doe, and shot it, and it run, and we're trying to track it, and we're no blood, can't find any blood, and this is at night when we're trying to look for it, and we're looking and we're looking and we're going around all over the place, and it's like we can't find it. We probably tracked it, 100 yards or so anyway, and we just can't find it. So we say, okay, well, must not have been as good a hit as I thought it was. So we go a week or so later, what is stinking? So I start like you, if we'd have walked probably another 20 or 30 yards, we'd have found it. That's how close we was to it. But we just gave up a little too soon. And we probably should have just kept walking straight, because where we was walking, that same direction would have took us right to the deer, except we ended up giving up a little bit short. And
you never know. And I had done my due diligence. I went back to where I shot the deer, followed where I thought he had gone, tried to find as much blood as I could find, did everything I could do, recruited help, looked and looked and looked, and then, back out the next day. I don't know if I think I was moving cameras. I was moving cameras is what I was doing. And I walked down, I had stopped up on this hill to overlook this ravine, and we never go in there. And I thought, well, I'll drop down this ravine to get back to the east side of the property. Drop down that ravine, and there that dude laid right there in the creek bottom. And I'm like, I was standing right above him multiple times probably, but close but no cigar. If I'd have found him the next day, I would have been able to obviously get the meat, get everything about the deer. But when I did find him, it was not the most pleasurable of smells, I guess you would say, trying to get trying to salvage what I could off that deer. Yeah, it's not a good thing.
I know one time I was out and they were talking about snow. Probably was it 3 or 4 inches of snow that night. And I'm out and I shoot this deer and end up shooting a little bit far back. And I waited an hour, hour and a half. I got down the found blood trail. I waited for Randy to show up, and he started following it. And then I was probably 30 yards. This deer gets up and runs off. So we go over where it was bedded down. Sure enough, pool of blood there. That's the deer. Well, you can't chase them. It's not dead. If I kept following it and keep going further and further and further. So we said, okay, stop. We didn't know where we'd come out. So we walked straight out. The next night we come back, we'd had, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches of snow. So I tell Randy and his son, Randy Jr., I said, we're looking for a lump of snow on it. They're looking for a lump with snow on it because it had that much snow. If it was dead, it was going to be just a lump. So we're all walking around. I didn't actually come across it. I found it about 30 yards from where it got up. It runs about 30 yards, lay back down again. And so now it's all covered with snow, and it was, freezing, a little bit below freezing because you're not going to snow from which is So it was down to like 20, I think, that night. So we get there, uncover it, all the snow off it, and the legs are froze, open the cavity up, and it's still warm. So I don't know how long it was laying there before it died, but it just laid down and eventually bled out. And then was able to get the deer because, hey, the legs are frozen, everything else is still warm, so it was easy to do, and we got it all gutted and hauled home and had some good meals.
They're tough animals, man. They're tough.
Yeah, they are. One of a buddy of mine, he says they were out during rifle season. He shoots an .6, and I forget what the other guys are shooting, and shot this deer. It come running by. He shot the deer. Kept running by. Another guy shot the deer and it probably won 100, 200 yards, something like that. He said when they found that the heart was just shredded, they had heart shots and hit it, and it still run that far. It's amazing what what they can do. And sometimes you shoot them with the arrow, they just kind of look around. It's like, oh, what was that?
Don't even know they've been hit. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. If you don't hit a big bone or anything, if you just happen to go through between the ribs, don't hit a rib, like, because they're so sharp and so fast, they just slice right through. And that Randy, buddy of mine that I used to hunt with, he said one time this, because here we had 2 tags. He had 2 tags so he could shoot more than one deer. He says this doe comes walking in, and he shoots. It just stands there. So he figured, well, I missed it. Then the buck comes following in, and of course now he's doing his job on the doe. He shoots the buck. It just ignores him. Next time they go walking out in the field, and then they start doing the little wobbling thing. He'd actually had kill shots on both of them, but they didn't realize it because they were focused on something else, and get out in the field, and now he's got 2 deer.
Double the work.
Yeah. You could do that. Nice thing about the bows is they're so quiet. You can shoot multiple times because they don't really hear it. Yeah. And some of the new bows, I was talking to one of the guys on the last podcast that I think comes out. I think it's coming out here next this Friday, I think it is. But he was talking about the new Matthews, and they got the, I think it's the lift, I think it was.
Yep.
Where they got that membrane between there, and he says you don't hear anything but your release going off. So they're really quiet. Because you're a Matthews shooter too, right?
No, used to be. Now it's Elite.
Oh, you're not. Yeah, because you talked about Matthews made you check, and that's one of the Matthews does is they pay you to win with their bows. That's why a lot of them shoot Matthews.
Oh yeah,
because like you said, you got an extra $10,000 at one time.
Oh yeah. Matthews has been great for archery. I mean, they've their motto was catch us if you can. They've been one of the industry leaders for a lot of years, and Matt's put some great bows together. He's assembled a great team. It's a marketing machine, and us at Elite, Hoyt's a great big brand, and everybody else, Bowtech, all the big manufacturers. I feel like Matthews set the bar, and we're all chasing them. Their motto was right: catch us if you can. So they've built a heck of a business, and they do a lot for target archery, and they do a lot for bow hunters. So I'm thankful to have been a part of what they had going on, and appreciate what they do for target archery, because that's the world I live in.
Right. Yeah, you know, at Top Archer, you know, if you're professional and you're in it for the money, and you can win with an Elite, you can win the PSE, you can win the Hoyt, you can win with the
Mm-hmm.
Matthews. And if you win with the Matthews, they pay you an extra $5,000, $10,000. What are you going to shoot?
Yeah, yeah. And there's, like Vegas, Matthews pays probably the most, but I know Elite's really competitive now at the ASAs and IBO events, and just about every manufacturer out there, if you win, has an open contingency program. You don't have to be sponsored by them. Some of them may have rules in place, but I know we're open. If you are just any average hunter off the street, if you go and win a tournament with our bow, we'll pay you the contingency money if it's eligible, or are we paying that class? So a lot of dollars to be earned out there if you're in the right spots at the right time.
Yeah, and that's nice because then you don't have to, you know, Matthews the only one doing it. Then you're going to want to shoot a Matthews because the extra money.
Yeah,
You know, now the other manufacturers like Elite and all the other ones, you know, at least there's a chance to getting some. So now you shoot what you want to shoot and
yeah,
not what pays the most.
yeah. It's a competition. I mean, we're all in competition together. We're fighting for sales. We're fighting for market share. We're all competing. We're competing against the consumer. So it's
Right.
in the same way in the tournaments. Everybody pays a decent amount of money. You pick what works best for you or what equipment you like. It's the Dodge, Ford, Chevy thing. What do you like?
Yeah.
What features do you like? And that's it's nice to be able to. Everybody has perks, so you don't have to be so narrow minded when it comes to selecting equipment.
Yeah. That's what's nice now is find what works for you
Yep.
and go with that. And, you know, if you don't like the way it shoots, you're not going to be happy with it. You're not going to shoot your best.
Yeah.
And that's why I always tell new archers, you go in there, it first you need to find out whether your dominant eye is right or left, so you know whether you get a right or left-handed bow. But you want to go in there and what's your price range? If you've got, say you got $1,000 to spend on a bow, I would definitely spend a high percentage on a release.
Yeah.
And then look at the other ones and don't be too concerned about the bow itself. Grab the bow, put it in your hand, see how it feels. If you like it, okay, consider that one. Grab another one. You don't like the way it feels in your hand, put it back up. It's not the bow for you. And so you get two of them that you like the way they feel in your hand, and then have whoever's, the bow tech set them up for the same draw length and the same draw weight, generally at the lowest end of the bow, because you're not there to draw a lot of weight. You want to see the difference, and then try them and shoot them, and then figure out what you like best. And sometimes, if they're set up to do that, shoot with your eyes closed,
Just feel it.
and you're going to feel your mind is going to see and feel what that bow does if your eyes are closed. Because once you open your eyes, now then you're be confused with all the external inputs into your eyes. And I've done that before. I had we had with like 6 bows, I think it was 5 or 6 bows, and laying on the floor in the range, couldn't figure out which one he wanted. And I said, okay, I'm going to hand you a bow. We're going to put an arrow in there, and you're going to draw back and shoot it with your eyes closed. The whole process, eyes closed. So you don't know which bow I put in your hand. And then took that one away, gave him another one. I was like, which one you like better and why? I didn't care his reason why. I just wanted him to say why.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, I like this one better because, okay, that one goes away. And then grab 2 more bows until you finally get down. It's like, I like this one I like. And then you see, okay, I picked this bow because you just said that was the best bow you liked.
Right.
And then that's the bow for you. And then, if a lot of the new archers aren't going to be able to use the max weight of the bow anyway. So that's why I said crank them down the same weight. If one goes like 55 to 70, and goes from 60 to 70, set them all at 60.
Yeah.
So they're the same way. Because if you take a bow at 60 and shoot it and set it at 70 and shoot it, it's going to act and feel differently.
For sure.
So don't have one, okay, this is real smooth because it's 60. And this one's real hard to draw and it's loud. And I was like, well, it's because it's set at 70. and so it's not a fair comparison. So
Right.
get them to be a fair comparison, and you go from there. And I tell new archers, get one of the ready to shoot packages that
Yeah.
comes with a rest, a sight, a quiver. Um, you know, most of them don't come with arrows and releases, but get one that has everything and then pick your arrows. Now start off with, I say, just get the cheapest arrows to start with. Your form's not going to lie to shoot any better than those arrows can shoot anyway. Now me, I shoot the Comp Pros, the 1000 straightness, because I don't like the bigger groups that the other arrows give me.
Yeah.
And if you go in and spend, say you got a package of $250 for your bow, you're going to buy the cheaper, lower end arrows, and then spend 100 or better on your release.
That's easy to do too.
Oh yeah, especially you get some of the high quality ones. And I tell beginning archers, get a wrist strap. Now you remember it goes on your wrist, not on your hand. I've seen so many put it on their hand. Um, put it on your wrist where it belongs, because it's a wrist strap, not a hand strap, and use one of those. Don't get a handheld to start with, because you end up punching yourself in the mouth.
Yeah, it can happen.
I got a video of this. I showed you. I have a Carter chocolate addiction, and when I draw back, my thumb is on side of the release, so I'm drawing back, and then I tilt forward and put my thumb on the release, and then I can draw through. Uh,
Mhm.
I have a Scott release that has a hook on it. I got it from uh, a guy that was a rep for Scott Archery
Okay.
back 95 or 96.
Day or
I
two
don't
ago.
Yeah, a day or two ago. And that's my release I go to when it gets cold, because I can't put in my hand. I have very little glove on here. I just basically on the back of my hand, because where the release goes in the joint between the index finger and thumb, that needs to be open so I can feel the trigger. And then so pretty much it's one of those gloves that are pretty much shot, but it covers enough of the palm of my hand and the back of my hand that I can use it. But when it gets so cold I can't use that, then I go to the wrist strap, because then all I need is just my index finger out. And keep it in my pocket and help keep it all warm, and
Adapting.
yeah. So, and then you don't have to worry about anchor point, because they're anchored differently. And the podcast I just uploaded, I recorded it yesterday, I just uploaded it today. I talk about how to anchor, where to anchor on your face, and how I do it anyway. And it was how to set the P python, and then draw process I go through, and you know all that. It's one of those things that this is what works good for me. And I teach things a little differently because of my many years of martial arts experience.
Mhm.
So I teach a little bit differently because of that concept of, you want your force to go straight to your target. So I teach a really closed stance. But if you're a new archer and you don't listen to what I tell you to do on your grip, you're going to hit your arm, even a correct draw length, because you're pulled back so far. If you get that grip, what happens is you've got your grip, and if you have it correct, your hands aside, but as soon as you turn it in, it puts that meaty part of your wrist, your forearm, in there.
Danger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I teach that, and a little bit shorter draw length helps, because it bends that arm a little bit more, and it keeps it completely out of the way. I'm a 29.5 inch draw length, but I shoot 29, because then we was talking about wintertime, heavy coats.
Yeah.
I don't hit my coat. I
Yeah.
don't hit my sleeve. I did that once on a deer before I knew my draw length was too long, and I shot, and I heard the string hit my jacket, and the deer just kind of turned around and didn't really move too much, walked away a little bit. But what happened, it caught enough, it went back, and it shattered the thigh bone on the rear leg. Of course, hit an artery and then cut that. But that muzzy, it just hit that bone, and it just shattered it in like 3 pieces. Muzzies, they say they're bad to the bone. Yeah.
Living
They're-
proof.
I actually took a muzzy broadhead one time when I had my store. I was shooting. It was late, trying to get some practice in. I had a broadhead target up. I completely missed the whole target and everything, hit above it on the concrete block wall with a muzzy broadhead. and a PSE arrow. I went up there. The shaft is laying on the ground. The insert is cracked in half. The shaft is cracked back about an inch. The broadhead's stuck in a concrete block. I still use that broadhead. It didn't hurt the broadhead a bit.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's tough.
I'd say.
Yeah, I just reached up, it only went in, maybe 16th of an inch, but just enough to stick. So I just pulled it right out.
Lucky.
Yeah. Not like when I hit a tree, I was shooting at a deer, and this tree, about an inch and a half in diameter, was between me and the vitals. I did not see that tree. And I shot and I heard this big whack. I'm like, oh, that was a good hit. Get down to find my arrow. It's stuck in a tree. I buried that broadhead in the tree. So I cut above and below it and pulled the broadhead out.
There you go. Salvaged it.
Yeah, I wasn't going to leave that broadhead in there. Too small of a tree. Just barely bigger than a broadhead. Yeah, we can talk about all kinds of stories all night long.
Yeah, it's easy to talk about archery if you enjoy it, if you've been doing it. I mean, of course, I assume you've been doing it a long time. I know I've been doing it a long time. It's easy to talk about in most cases.
Yeah, I got my first bow, Ben Pearson fiberglass bow, 25 pound. And at that time, I had the choice of wood arrows and feathers or a fiberglass arrow for bow fishing.
Okay.
That was in the 60s.
Yeah.
It wasn't until probably about 10, 12 years later when the compounds come out.
Yeah, and it's changed so much. Just even, just the years I've been doing it, we've said, and I've heard it said many times, how much better can they make the equipment? It's gotta hit a peak eventually, but every year they come up with something bigger and better, the latest, greatest. It's really amazing how far technology's brought this sport, and it's the equipment's unbelievable.
Yeah, and 10 years ago we thought, wow, they can't really advance too much over this. 5 years later, well, they can't advance too much over this.
Yeah.
And now this year it's like, well, they got bows now that really don't make any noise. Yeah. You don't need a dampening on it.
Super efficient, fast, quiet. I mean, they check a lot of boxes. There's some great stuff out there.
Not a lot of vibration. The older bows like mine, I have a 2001 PSE and a 2003 PSE that I shoot. And, back then my 2001 PSE Carrera was rated at 320 feet per second. But you don't get that out of it because, well, I'm putting dampeners in it to quiet it down, decrease the vibration. And now then when they come out the parallel limb designs, when you think about the force, when that bow goes off, you pull those limbs back and they're going forward. So the bow's going to follow where the limbs want to go because the force is going forward. Now at the parallel lines, all the forces up and down and counteract each other. So they sit in your hand a lot better. So you don't need as much vibration dampening, and you can get by with, you could probably even get by with something that bows now without a sling and not have it in front of your hand. Except when I'm hunting, I'm going to drop it because I don't hang on to it. That's why I use a sling.
You need a safety net there.
Yeah. Yeah, because if I didn't have to put my sling on when I shot out of a tree stand, my bow would be on the ground. I get one shot, I'd go down and pick it up. It's not broke. Because falling out of a tree stand, 12, 15 feet is not going to be good on a bow.
No, probably not going to get away with that without damage.
No, especially if they fall down and they hit on a stabilizer or something, or hit on your side, or, fortunately, hopefully there's not a rock underneath there that your bow hits.
Yeah.
Because that'll definitely do a good job on it. So where do you plan on taking your archery from now? I know you're working at Elite and doing all that. And it's like, where do you see yourself going from here?
I'll continue to do my job and work and, compete as long as I'm physically able to compete. I have big dreams of retiring at 60, which, like I said, I'll be 54 this April. So maybe work 6 more years and compete 6 more years if I'm able to. That's just my vision right now. I don't know if that'll happen, maybe I'll shoot later. Maybe I'll work more years. I don't really know. That's my goal right now, is to, retire at a fairly early age and enjoy my life, because you just never know. Tomorrow's not promised. So
No,
I don't want to work. I don't want to work till I'm in my late 70s, or I don't want to work my life away. They say enjoy your golden years. I don't want that to be a few months. I want it to, there's things I want to do, places I want to see, and maybe I just sit at home on the back deck and watch the grass grow. I don't know, but that's kind of where I see myself going.
that'd be kind of boring. I get bored really quick doing that kind
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah. Well, I think maybe I have earned a couple boring days in my life. Maybe that's what I want to do. I guess I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I don't know. That's my current plan. Just continue to play with bows and arrows for the next 5 or 6 years, and then see what happens when that day gets here.
Yeah, I know. I retired a few years ago and was doing a lot of online stuff, and actually that's how the podcast started. It was something I was doing and was challenged to start a podcast, and I was like, well, I'll do one. Then I'm thinking, what am I going to talk about on a podcast? Archery.
Yeah,
So
there
then
you
I
go.
started this, and I formed the group, and because I had some place to go there, and I started off with the first podcast, like, okay, what am I going to do? And I said, okay, I put down a checklist. What, as a new archer, that's a new person that wants to get into archery, what do you want to do? What do you need to know before you even get to the store? Well, one, you know what your eye dominance is, so you know what that is. What your draw length is, so you kind of know what that is. And then what type of archer you want. You want to do recurves, you just watch Hunger Games and you're interested in, the recurves or longbows or compounds or crossbows, or any of the other many, many different styles of bows out there. There's so many. There's not just recurves, longbows, and compounds and crossbows. There's so many different ones out there. What do you need to know? And so I go in and so I go, here's how you check your eye dominance, and here's how you check your draw length. So you kind of know when you get to the store, when you get it hook up to the tech that's going to help you. You know what they need to be asking you and checking for. One of the first things you need to do is, what's the dominant eye? So right or left-handed bow. And then
Yeah.
what do you want? What are you trying to get out of it? You want to just shoot in your backyard? Or are you interested in doing 3D? Are you interested in doing target archery? You look at the Olympics.
Yeah.
That's all different. You need to get, where you're going. And I started with that checklist, and then I was like, okay, I have someplace to send them. So then I created Arch Talk 101 Facebook group, someplace to send them, and then started growing that. And right now I think there's like 1,300 people in that group right now.
Wow.
And all organic growth. I go out there and some of the groups, people would post, so I should post like, well, how's my form? And then response would be, well, practice more. That's not the right answer. So I'd say, hey, join this group, upload your video, and we'll look at it. We'll give you some pointers. So
Yeah.
I started going and doing that. And, I haven't had anybody upload a video recently, but hey, anybody that's listening, if you want your form looked at, upload it to the group. We're going to take a look at it and we'll give you some pointers.
Yeah. No,
And
that's awesome.
that's what we use the group for, is, learning. And of course, now I get a lot of the podcasts. I post those in there. This one is podcast number 164.
Wow.
So starting my third year doing it. I started
That's awesome.
in a full year, and then now I'm starting my third year doing it. So yeah, I've interviewed all kinds of archers, and hey, if you want to come on the podcast talk archery, you're more than welcome. Just let me know. And we'll
Yeah.
the link
That's
to get on
awesome.
and do it. Um, if you're thinking about getting an archery, don't know what to do, hey, get on here. We'll talk about what we need to look for in the bow. If you just got your bow, hey, let's talk so we can help you out.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's what the group's for, and that's what we like to do with it. And that's kind of why I do this. Besides, I get to talk to archers all over the world.
That's cool.
It could be somebody in the UK, it could be in Ireland, it could be in Africa, it could be Australia, it could be in Germany, um, Croatia,
Yeah.
in Bosnia, uh, all over. Some I think in Italy, and in fact, my first guy I taught online was in Italy. Didn't have any
Wow.
any coaches around, so hey, send me a video. and I was Darrin critique. So I was teaching him how to do it in, over Messenger, basically. And, that's when I was looking at putting in an online coaching program. And that's what I was like, okay, how's this going to work? And then had another guy up in Canada, he's actually in the group, so he may hear this or not, but, he was grouping, about 6-inch groups. So we got on the call for about 45 minutes. And then he sent me a picture a few weeks after that, 3 arrows touching.
Nice.
So, if you're willing to be coached, hey, there's a lot of people that are going to help you. I've even heard stories of archers struggling, and the guy they're shooting against is helping them. It's
Yeah.
like, give them pointers. Well, I'm competing against you, but I'm going to help you get better. That's just kind of the archery community where, if you're struggling, ask me. I'll
Yeah.
help.
Fair
Not while
enough.
I'm actually shooting. I'm not going to help you while I'm shooting, but in between shots, we can.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, hey, it's been great talking with you today. I'm sure you've got things you need to do tonight as well, and don't want to take up all night. But we've been on here about an hour and 45 minutes. So yeah, that's kind of about normal for the podcast. We
Gotcha.
figure for an hour, but I allow for 2.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on, and thanks for letting me talk about archery. And I wish you the best with your podcast and your group, and keep teaching the sport. That's great.
Yeah. And for those that have listened this long, I'll put some links to get a hold of everybody in here. The links to Elite Archery, I'll put some of that in there. I'll link how to get a hold if you have questions. I'll leave links in the description so you can always get a hold of us one way or another. So it's
Perfect.
been great talking with you. And we'll see you on the next one. My name is Roy. I've been your host today on Arch Talk 101, and we'll catch you on the next one.